into this topic that we have today, which is the dream to be a full-time writer? So I kind of want to hear from you guys in the chat. Like, who would like ideally love to be full-time?
So Lisa's live stream just started, and I had no idea what our topic was going to be today. And it turns out it's going to be about being a full-time author, what that even means, and whether or not it's something you even really want to do. Even if you think it's something you want to do, is it really something you want to do? And this is a really great topic. I think one of my very first videos, I think it was like within my first 10 videos, was about being a full-time author. And I'll be honest, I don't remember too much of what I said, except it was mostly positive about it, because I consider myself to be a full-time author, and I also want to do this full-time. However, I fully understand that not everybody wants to do this full-time, and we're just now in our first 5-minute writing warm-up sprint, so I'm not going to get too much into all my thoughts on this just yet, but I'm very curious to see where this conversation goes and what people in the chat especially have to say about it.
I loved it. But then I had this very traumatic event and I couldn't write. And, if you have a traumatic event, you can still, drag yourself into a day job every day and they'll still pay you. But if you stop writing, eventually that money goes like that, which is what happened. And it's been harder to start building that back up, because I basically just neglected my writing career for several years.
Sometimes I do feel weird saying I am a full-time author, because I think there's it implies there that I am 100% living off the money that my books make.
Right.
When the truth is, on average, I would say about half my income is ghostwriting, but it is ghostwriting books.
Right.
I write fiction for a living. That's
right.
That is 99% of my income. Yeah. So I do think that counts.
I know, right? So that's what I have. I have my books.
I managed to, over the last few years since I started my YouTube channel, first draft a bunch of novels for self-publishing, and now I'm starting to edit them. But life always takes over. Then we have the whole corporate mentality of, like JC said, you're not young anymore, so you're not viable. But at one point in time, artists, creators of all sorts were given respect because their experience, their creativity, their versatility with craft. But now corporate just wants to hire somebody cheaper, somebody younger. They figure just move on to the next thing. And it's all trickle down from that. You are viable, and everything that you learned and do in life is grist for the story mill. Everything that you're experiencing helps to add to that. So you're never too old.
All right, I was actually taking notes on that call, because y'all will be unsurprised to hear that this is a topic I could go on about for a while. And the first thing I wrote down, see if I can actually read my own chicken scratch now, is money, comma, your books. And what I meant by that, and I mentioned this a little bit on the call, is, we have to start by, I think, just defining what people mean when they say full-time author. I think a lot of people consider the definition of that to be, I am earning a living, I am paying my way in this world, whatever that means, off my own books. And I don't entirely agree with that. One, because, to be frank, it is, I don't want to say impossible. It's not impossible, but it is a very small percentage of authors, traditionally published or self-published, actually make that happen. And I mean, you are paying your rent or your mortgage and your bills and everything you need to take care of yourself and your life off of your books. I'm not trying to say this out of any place of judgment or anything like that, but I think there are a lot of people out there, especially people on YouTube, who are offering others advice on how to do the same thing, who are maybe a little disingenuous about that, because a lot of us do have financial support from elsewhere in our lives. And I'll just, for the sake of full transparency, well, I have been transparent in the past. I'll link up here. I've had videos where I flat out share exactly what I make. And for me, I consider being a full-time author. I call myself a full-time author, but I include ghostwriting in that. Ghostwriting tends to make up around half of my income, and most of the other half does come from my own books. I'm looking at the last 3 years. And things like the courses I teach, income I get from having this YouTube channel, and other things like my Skillshare courses. I'm trying to think of what else I do. That's like a sliver. It's like 2 to 3% of my income. It's a very negligible amount. Even book coaching, which I do regularly, I will admit I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm gonna say 10%. So let's say 45% comes from ghostwriting, 45% comes from my own books, and 10%, 9% comes from book coaching, with that other 1 to something percent coming from things like YouTube. My point is, if I lost the book coaching and I lost all that other stuff, the courses and YouTube and all of that, I would not be kicked out of my apartment. I would not be unable to pay my bills. And now the other thing a lot of people, I think, don't talk about when we talk about this is what kind of savings we have, whether we have like things like a trust fund, whether we have a spouse, especially a spouse with a job that is really high paying. Some people are super transparent with that stuff, and I really appreciate that. I think that's really important. Others, not so much. They kind of hide that information, and it's very misleading. And so you guys know I'm married. My husband, I've talked about this before. He is a teacher. He is a percussion director. We both did this job way before we left Texas in the early 2000s. We've moved around a lot, and now we're back here, and he's doing that job again. So if you really wanted to look up public school teacher salaries in Texas, you are welcome to do so. I'm not gonna tell you what he makes, but I will say this. If he were single, he would be fully able to be doing well on his own income without me. And if I were single, I would be fully able to live the way I want to live just on my income. So that's that's that. This is a weird thing to talk about, but again, I do think it is really important. So when I talk about I am a full-time author, I mean I am making enough money to pay all my bills and feed myself and take care of things I need to take care of financially. And that money is coming from writing books. It's an awkward topic, but again, I think it's a really important topic. The second thing I wrote down on this little thing is risks of monetizing your creativity. And I think that's a big one, and I really hope we get into that in the next part of this panel discussion, because I know a lot of people who thought they wanted to be full-time authors, and then they did it, and then it truly destroyed their actual love of writing. And that is a risk in any creative career you're ever going to enter. I mean, if you're a musician, if you're a graphic designer, if you're an artist in any way, living off of the thing you enjoy doing creatively, it works great for some people. It's absolutely soul destroying for other people. And that's scary, but it's something you really, really want to think about. And if you think you want to pursue it, be really aware as you're progressing through your career. Pay attention to things like burnout. Burnout happens to everybody. It's not like this huge red flag that you've ruined your life and you never should have done this as a career. But you just want to pay attention to the ways burnout is manifesting for you in particular, how it makes you feel about your books and the process of being creative in the way that you are. And I will say this, for me, I get burned out. It happened this year, it happened last year. I talk about it a lot on this channel. I get exhausted with the idea of writing, as in, I don't want to work on this right now, whatever this is. I don't want to open this document because I have just overworked myself and I need a break. But when I step back from it and I just think about thinking of ideas for books and the excitement I feel around writing them, that excitement never goes away. I just don't want to do it right now. And the people I know who were authors and who do not write books anymore because they tried doing it as a career and it killed their love for it. They do not get excited about book ideas anymore. If they get book ideas, the excitement is, I hope somebody writes this one day so that I can read it. The excitement is from a reader perspective, not a writer perspective. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to want to do this full time. But it's just, if you're considering this as a career path, it's something I think you should just constantly, every couple months, kind of reassess. Look at how you're feeling about your writing. Is this actually what you want to do day after day after day? Another thing I talked about in this panel discussion on Lisa's channel is some people know from the very beginning that this is not what they want to do. They do not want to write books full time. They don't want to be a freelancer. They don't want to work from home. They want an office place with people where they can socialize during the day, and then they can leave all of their job and the mental work at their desk and go home to a separate place and have their personal life and just keep those things separate. And man, I get it. That's not who I am. I very much enjoy working from home, but when people talk about that, I can see it from that angle, and I fully appreciate that that's what they want. And if you want to be an author and yet you don't want to be at home all day writing books, please know that that is 100% okay. You can absolutely have a day job, and you can, and I'm going to finger quote this because I hate this expression, find time to write. In fact, I've already made a note to myself that I think my video next week is going to be about that phrase, I don't have time to write a book, because it makes me a little bit angry. And the short version of why is because nobody has time to write a book. We don't just have time falling in our laps. We make time. You make time to watch Netflix, right? Like right now, I'm making time to watch The Staircase on Netflix every night a little bit. We make time to do the things we want to do. So if you want to write a book, you can make time to write a book. You don't have to make it your full-time job every single day. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit now, and we are halfway through this 20-minute sprint, and I should actually do a little writing. So we'll come back and finish up this discussion in a little while.
A lot of stuff on social media, including YouTube and AuthorTube. There are a lot of people that wanted that full-time dream of becoming a full-time author. And most of the ones who did and encouraged other people were people who had a spouse who was making enough money that they could stop working their day jobs. And on top of that, I would like to say, when I was working a day job, I wrote every day. So did that still make me a full-time author? Mm-hmm. I brought a phone and a portable keyboard. On lunch, at breaks, I was writing. People would talk to me, and I realized they were just going on about work and the job and the problems, and I just shut them out, and I kept on writing.
I love that you brought that up, because that's actually what I talked about when I was vlogging before. Some people aren't very transparent of their other sources of income. They make it appear as if they're living off their books, and they're not living off their books.
Well, mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? There's another part of that, too, is that if you have a spouse who can and wants to support you in that way financially,
mm-hmm. No, that's great.
That can give you a really good ramp up. Like mm-hmm. for me, I did make full-time income, but my spouse had I didn't need to work. So mm-hmm. it's a lot easier if you're not trying to cram that. Now, obviously, I do need to work, or at least make enough income on my own, right? But when you have, if you don't have to worry about that, then you can just go, full time immediately. And it takes less time to get to the point where your books can support you.
Right.
Is that exactly what we wanted to talk about today?
And I think part of the reason that some people are kind of hesitant to share those details is because there are some pretty nasty people in the writing community. It's oh, well, you can only do that because your husband pays the bills.
Right.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, no.
If
yes, those people are just looking for excuses not to follow their own dreams, frankly. Mm-hmm. We all have...
That is absolutely the truth.
We all have, certain privileges in our lives, and we all have certain obstacles we have to overcome, and it's all going to look different for everybody. So at the end of the day, do you want to do you? Do you want to get yourself where you want to be? So Robert ended up bringing up exactly what I talked about, the whole thing about people being misleading about, having other sources of income from a spouse or something like that, when and presenting themselves as a full-time author. And this is a really sensitive subject, and I tried to cover this and explain my, where I stand on it in the live stream, but I just really want to be clear about it in this video. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having, for example, a spouse who makes a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with having some family money, a trust fund, or some source of income that you are not earning through working, but that you got, you know what I'm talking about. There's nothing wrong with any of that at all. My only beef with this is that there are people on YouTube and elsewhere on influencer author world where people are saying, with a big following, where people are looking up to them, are saying, I am a full-time author and here is how you can be one too. And they share a look into what they are doing as if they are under the illusion that they are actually earning a full-time income to live off of, to, feed and clothe themselves and their children and pay their bills off of. And they are not disclosing that that's not the case. I think that's really, really misleading. I think people need to be more upfront about that. So anyway, the next thing on my little bullet point list that I made as we were discussing this, the third point I wrote was, if you want it, be flexible. And now I'm trying to remember exactly what I mean by that, what I meant by that. I think what I meant was, okay, I wanted to be a full-time author from the beginning of me starting to write books. It never occurred to me, because I didn't even really register that it was a thing, that this could one day include ghostwriting. I do count ghostwriting as me being a full-time author, because to me, being a full-time author means I'm making all the money I need to make writing books. And like I said earlier, about half of those books that I write are mine, and the other half are for other people. And the point of it is, at the end of at the beginning of every day, when I sit down to work, I'm writing stories and I'm getting paid for it. And to me, that is my definition of being a full-time author. At one point, it wasn't, because I didn't even know that that was really a possibility for me. And so I think you need to be flexible and know that in the beginning, 10 years down the road, your career probably won't look exactly like you're envisioning it right now. But that doesn't mean that you can't achieve your goals. It just means that the picture might change as you work towards them. And to be flexible with that and to embrace that, because you know what? You might end up 10 years down the road your career might not look the way you're picturing it now, but it might be something even better and even cooler. I love ghostwriting. I never would have thought back then, when I think about when I started out, like, if you had described it to me, I don't know if I would have been as excited about it as I am now. I don't know if I would have understood back then how much I actually love listening to other people talk about their book ideas and then getting to play a role in bringing that to reality for them. It's very satisfying to me. I really love doing it. So yeah, be flexible. The next point I made, and this is going to sound a little bit dark. I don't mean it to, but I wrote, stability is an illusion. And I think if the last couple of years have taught us anything, it's that. Stability is an illusion. Our brains don't like instability. Our brains don't like not knowing what's going to happen. And that's why I think we had and continue to have such a mental health crisis as a result of the pandemic, is all the not knowing was really difficult for people. And it was really difficult for me. But at the end of the day, like, things are always unstable. And I actually find some relief and comfort in that phrase, even though it sounds like a really dark thing to say, because I've lived 42 years on this earth and things have always been unstable, probably in ways that most of the time in ways that I never actually knew at the time. And I'm still here and I'm doing okay. And you're still here and you're doing okay. And the real reason it makes me feel almost empowered to think of it in this way is because I know that I can choose to think about things in a way that creates the feeling of stability for myself. So I'm trying to think of a good example of what I mean by this. When I wrote this down, be flexible, or I'm sorry, stability is an illusion. I know it's that a lot of people fear being a full-time author because they find comfort and stability in having a full-time job with a steady paycheck and health insurance and all of that. And again, if that's what you truly want for yourself, I get it. A lot of people do. Please go for that. That's great. You can have a 9-to-5 job and write books and be a very successful author. A lot of people do it. But if you don't want that full-time job, if you really want to be a full-time author, but that fear of losing stability freaks you out, again, I'm not saying this to sound dark, but there is nothing stable about a 9-to-5 job. There's nothing stable about having one single source of income that some person in your company or organization that you work for might, cancel any moment. We could all, anybody with a 9-to-5 job, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. When you work for someone else, you might lose your job. You don't know what's going to happen. You might get a salary cut. You don't know what's going to happen. It's not stable. And I think the pandemic taught a lot of people that, which is why we're seeing this such, transitioning from people going from this job to the other, people quitting this and going to this, and just trying to figure out what they actually want, because a lot of people had the rug pulled out from under them. They thought they had stability. They thought they had a steady job and a steady paycheck and health insurance, and all of that got taken away in a second. So, you can, to come back to what I was saying about your thought, you can change your thought around that to actually, this job might not be so stable. I don't know if it's stable or not. It might go away tomorrow. And I could create stability in a job for myself as a full-time author by coming up with all of these other, ways to make this career happen, such as ghostwriting, such as book coaching, such as offering developmental editing services or other freelance services that you are qualified to offer and charge for people to help supplement your income as you build your full-time author career. You could comfort yourself with the knowledge that, okay, well, I don't have this one job with this one source of income now, but I'm building a job where I have multiple sources of income. And if one of those income sources gets cut off, I still got all this other money coming in. And you can find stability in that. You can change the way you think about it, and you can feel the sense of stability. I hope that made sense. And then let's see. Constantly redefine success. This was a big one for me over the last couple years, because I spent more than half of my career, I think it wasn't that I had defined success in a very specific way. I think it was that I didn't define it clearly enough at all. I think in my head, and I'm talking about from the beginning, from when I got my first book deal through probably 2017, 18, success as an author, as a full-time author, to me was, living off my books, period. I had not found ghostwriting yet at this time, so that. And having some kind of breakout. And I never even really defined what I meant by breakout. In my head, it was either winning some kind of pretty big award or hitting the list, which we all know my thoughts on that. And something that that I thought either hitting a list or winning an award would mean that publishers would always want my books from here on out. And oh boy, is that ever not true. Let me tell you, I know some authors who have hit the New York Times bestseller list and were not able to get a contract for their next books. Same with awards. There is no guarantee. There's no guarantee. You might say stability is an illusion. And I was thinking to myself that if I had one of these markers of being a breakout success, that it would create stability for my author career, and I would be free to write whatever I wanted, and it would always get published and it would always sell, and I would be totally fine. That doesn't exist. Had to accept that. So define success for yourself, and do it in smaller markers as well as bigger markers. What is success for you this week? What can you do right now so that 5 days from now, or whenever your week is over, you are this was a successful week in my author career. Do it by month, do it by every 6 months, do it by year. Define success for yourself and be really crystal clear about it. And I think that's going to be really helpful. And then the last thing I wrote on the back it's not fun every step of the way. People, okay. How much time do I have left? I have 5 minutes, okay. People who dream of being a full-time author, but have a very, they have delusions about it. They don't, you know, it's gonna be just happy, beautiful, waking up when you want, making your cup of coffee and having this quiet, uninterrupted, blissful hours of writing and writing and writing, and that's it. No, it's not like that. And there are going to be things you don't want to do. You might love the brainstorming phase and hate drafting, but guess what? You're gonna have to draft. You're gonna have to write a draft at some point. You might love drafting, but you hate editing. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to edit your book a couple times. You might hate copy edits. You're gonna have to do your copy edits. It's not going to be this like complete blissed out, amazing experience every step of the way. You're going to have to treat it like a job. And now we're circling back to the whole monetizing your creativity, and how that messes with some people and it doesn't mess with other people. If you feel like treating your creativity, your writing novels like a job is going to destroy your love of writing novels, then being a full-time author might not be for you, because it is a job. And every job, no matter how much we love it, every job is going to come with some tasks that we just don't want to do. But if we want this to be our job, if this is our overall want, then we're gonna suck it up and we're gonna do those tasks anyway. So now I only have a couple minutes and I'm very curious to hear how everybody wants to get in their final thoughts and wrap up this conversation.
But it's just the fact that like the information about being an author is either outdated or it's not on point, you know? Like I watched an interview about this one guy and he says he's a writer and about how he goes and he writes outside in his yard, and I'm kind of like, yeah, but what else do you do?
That's good. It's good to write outside in your yard. I write outside of my lanai sometimes.
God, you know what else? I only just thought of this too, is that especially just here on YouTube, you've got a lot of people who are in self-publishing, spreading misinformation about traditional publishing, and vice versa. Like, there's just a whole lot of, well, here's why you don't want to go that route. Let me just vomit all this.
We're here. Now we have more people on YouTube who have more traditional publishing experience, but there was a lot of stuff out there that was just not true. And the thing is I have done both. There are things I really like about indie publishing. Like, I really liked all the control. I really like that a lot. But there are also real advantages to being traditionally published. And especially, and the thing is like, once you have been traditionally published, then I feel like you have, like, you don't lose some of those advantages when you indie publish. Like, if you've been traditionally published, then it's not as big a deal to like get a review from like a major publication, because they, like, you've already been through.
Okay, so we wrap that up. I'm gonna leave a link to that live stream down below if you want to check out the full discussion. Lisa is not going to be live streaming next week. She'll be on vacation, but then after that we're going to be back to our regular every Wednesday at 10 a.m. CST. I think of it in my time zone. And yeah, so please join us for those, because it's always just, especially lately, it's been like really, really good discussions. I'm very curious to know what you guys think about this. How do you define, when somebody says, I'm a full-time author, how do you define that? What does that mean to you in your head? Does it have anything to do with money or not? And what do you want for yourself? Would you want to be a full-time author, and why or why not? And on what terms? And if you have any other questions about it, or if there's something I didn't cover in this video and you want me to maybe make more videos about this, it's a topic I could chat about for quite a while. I have a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts, so just let me know in the comments below. And that's it. I will see you guys next week with another video. Bye.